class, they know I can draw. So that's never been, in fact, I drew first before I did anything else. So that doesn't work for me. It's also, the perception is, if you learn how to do everything else properly, then you can, play around and express yourself in abstraction. And a lot of people talk about abstraction in terms of, well, you take that still life, and here's an example. There's a line you can draw from Morandi to, our recently deceased artist. His name is, you know who he is. What's that?
Richard Degenkorn?
No, not Degenkorn. The guy who had the airplane, Tony Omni. I'm getting old. So if you look at Tony Omni, he talked, admittedly, he said, he really looked at Randy as Randy kind of boiled things down to that, right? The negative shapes became the positive, they were equal. He looked at the formal relationship between a shadow and an actual object in space in its background. So that's that kind of abstraction. But as people know who work with me, we're starting from a very different premise. The other thing I would suggest, and I suggest this to the group, is that if at some point in my life I looked at all representational painting, people, places, things, objects, and 99.9% of them are formally asymmetrical. There's a dominant and subordinate structural relationship in the picture. In fact, there's whole books on picture making. Just go to Boland's and get American Artist or Watercolor Magazine, and they'll tell you how to make a proper painting. The eye is led by the subject. Well, if you look at an abstraction, does anyone see a person, a place, or a thing here? No. So, ergo, for most people, there's nothing there. There's no meaning, because we associate meaning with people, places, and things. So I said to myself in teaching, if representational artists are starting off with chaos, which I believe they are, the art is in how they order things, and it makes you forget that what you're looking at is a lie, because the only thing real about what is on a representational painting is the paint, not what it represents or refers to. I'm not saying that's bad, but that's their art, making you forget that this is a brilliant lie. Well, if people are painting abstractly, why are we using the same paradigm? Why are we using the same techniques, the same rules, the same ideas to create an abstraction? It makes sense to me, at least to me it does. So I said to people, rather than starting with chaos, which is the way a lot of people are teaching abstraction, just let it happen. Does anyone here just let it happen? How does that work for you? How do you assess the results of what you're doing, just letting it happen, and then what? I guess you don't need instruction, you should have a pile of work. It's just so brilliant and so consuming that you have to do it. That's not what I found. What I found is greater and greater acts of rationalization about what's going on. I call those easy abstract, for those who know me. You see them all over. They're in IKEA, they're in an urban barn, some of them are in galleries I won't mention, but that's okay. And I say, well, hey, what I take from that is these people are doing what they believe with passion. I may not like it, I may disagree with it completely, but I say, okay, if I want to do something with my life, I'm going to do the same thing in terms of what I believe in with passion. Then there's no argument. I'm just doing what I don't have to agree, they don't have to agree with me. So, if we're not doing people, places, and things, and we don't have any preconceived notion about what a picture is, then we have a place to start. So what I suggested is, you begin with order. You don't arrive at it, because I know people, they're emotionalizing the form-making process. And a lot of these people, unfortunately, have been told, let it happen. And maybe that person, before they were an art teacher, was an art therapist. Or a therapist, I don't know, and that's okay, but does it work? In my experience, it doesn't. Because art requires form. Now we know there's schools, the formless school, which is kind of, if there's no form, there's no formlessness. So it's all great philosophy 101, but is it practical? Can you go to a studio and know what you're doing and still be surprised. And that's the kicker. Just because you begin with order doesn't mean it's a formula or a recipe. In fact, I think that having an idea to begin with and intending to carry it out and to pursue it leads to mystery. It leads to deeper and deeper layers of mystery that are not obvious, that don't, in a sense, tickle the sensibilities right away. Now, I use this example in teaching. If you hear a piece of music and that music moves you in some way, do you usually go back and listen to it again? Or do you say, oh great, that's great, I'll never hear that? Or if you read a book, how many people have read Hamlet or you know, Anna Karenina or whatever? I'm just thinking of novels people might know. And you want to read it again because it unfolds over time. There's more, there's layers. So just reading it once is not enough. How can painting be that way? And that's my, my own bias. And I try to tag things. This is my opinion, that's all it is. So I would like to make paintings, and I think you look at these works, the only reason they're on the wall is that you can't exhaust them easily, visually. You may not like them, you may like the color, or not like the color, but I think they've arrived at a position where there's enough there to challenge some people's sensibilities. So you look at them and they unfold over time. And it's not fair because music has that built in. I love music and I'm jealous. Because when if you hear music and there's a beat, don't you start going like this? You feel it right away. It's immediate. At least that's for me. And I grew up with a father who was a drummer, and I played trumpet. So if I wasn't a visual artist, I might have been a composer or a musician. But I'm really jealous because I am absolutely moved in a powerful way when I hear music. So I want the same thing in painting. And that requires examining what do we mean by expressing myself. What self are we talking about? The self that wants recognition, the self that wants to be famous, to sell paintings, to get someone to say I love it. What is it? Or is it a self that is about, why are we here, where are we going, what does life mean, and so on and so forth, without being too corny about it. So I think more than ever that people need order, they need direction. It's not, I would feel like I'm stealing people's money when they come and they say, well, I'd like to learn how to paint. I go, well, I don't know how you should paint, but here's a way to experiment in relation to abstraction. And in my brochure, in fact, it spells it out. I don't know how to paint any of these paintings myself. I don't want to know. I'm trying to figure out how to make my own or paint my own. But I am encouraging people to take up some ideas and see where they go, what they can do with them. So if we begin with order, and you end with order, how do you get surprised? Well, you modulate. So I'm going to give you the phrase that I've shared with all these people. If I'm not painting a subject matter, what am I doing? So I say, as a visual artist, I embrace the inherent phenomenological properties of color. I'm embracing the inherent phenomenological properties of form or shape, of line, of tone. And I don't make any assumptions. So that's the thing. If you can have a kind of a Zen mind and be at the beginning all of the time, and not anticipate, well, tone, okay, this is how I use tone. I don't like those tones, I like these ones. You know, like the credit card company, like, well, I can shop, I'll just exercise my ability to say no or yes. You want to embrace the whole spectrum. And if you look around the walls here, do they all look alike? Isn't it amazing? These people have been working together in critiques and developing work on their own. None of them, no two look alike, no two artists. So a lot of people look at me and they go, well, they got to go to study with Porteous, they're all going to be hard-edged geometric. All going to I don't see that happening. So, there is variety, there's breadth, there's scope to it, and there's an opportunity for each person to find their own way. I'm going to end with this, because I know, we don't have any chairs and you don't want to hear a lecture. I'm going to end with this. If when you're working, you want to be able to go into a studio, know why you're there, have a sense of purpose and direction, have a sense of intention, and then enjoy the process, right? You don't want to go in there and say, okay, I'm going to paint, or I got a show coming, I better make some of these. You want to use art in a way as a way of engaging subject, or as a way of engaging ideas, or engaging what keeps you up at night, what gives you a sense of meaning in life, whatever that is. The difference here is that it's not being translated into a narrative or into something that refers to an object or a person or a place that you can identify. That's the only difference. So the translation is where it's at. And if you don't have a vocabulary for visual events or visual phenomenon, then you're going to be hampered by it, that's all. Not that you can't, but it's a different vocabulary than we have for creating illusions. So one of the rules is, in an abstract painting, there's no illusion. In Linda's work here, there's some colors that kind of vibrate, right? The green and the pink there, the red, green, red. Are they kind of, they're moving around a little bit. The orange and the blue. And so is that an illusion, or is that happening? In this case, that's real. It's the inherent, part of the inherent phenomenological property of color relationships. Simultaneous contrasts. So how do you approach these phenomenon, if you will, is going to determine, in a sense, how you make a picture. The other thing is, if you're not using brushes, a lot of people think we're the squeegee group. We're out on the curb. It's kind of good to know this stuff, because if it doesn't sell, then you're out on the boulevard. And you got your squeegee, and clean a few windows, make a few bucks before Christmas. But the reason why I suggest the squeegees to people and alternative tools is that brushes have their own memory. You put a brush in your hand and you're going to let it all happen, and accidentally, a tree emerges, or a face. Or, it looked like a profile of something. There's nothing wrong with any of that, by the way. I'm not saying that's bad. But if you want to do something abstract, which doesn't have imagery in it, how does that work? So there's all these little pitfalls that I've observed in students, and I'm just trying to say, well, here, keep you on track. Not like that's terrible, but if you want to do abstraction, you can't be doing this at the same time. So people know I say this to them: either you're pregnant or you're not. People come in and they go, well, here's my abstraction, and there's a leaf and a little face from. They say, well, you've just reinvented abstraction. You now have a hybrid, which we have seen before. But the abstract part becomes wallpaper. All that beautiful squeegeeing or modulation of color or surface or patterns, put a bird on it, and what happens? It's wallpaper for the bird. I'm not saying that's wrong either, but that's not where I'm at, and that's not what I believe works for abstraction. So I'll give you an example. Do you find any little birds in a Rothko? Are there little, they're little, maybe angry birds. They're down at the, I just played that game with my grandson. They're down at, they're so small you can't see them. No, you don't have that. You don't see a Constable painting with a big red square in the middle of it to make it more, to get some abstract content.
That's a good idea.
So, well, it's all appropriation. It's like, I know, looking at an architect there, isn't that, architecture, there's a little bit of this, there's a whole school of that. You appropriate from this and you throw it with that, and it's very shocking at first. So, to finalize this, if you begin with or you end with order, you should be surprised at the end. And you have to do it, I believe, if you're going to do what these people have done, you have to do it exclusively for a period of time. You have to immerse yourself. And that's the leap of faith you have to make. Everybody I know, if I told them, take the course, and in 12 weeks, you'll have a show here. Are you going to sign up? Of course. But if I said, take the course, 12 weeks, you may hate me, or you may hate painting, but you might feel compelled to keep going. That's the journey. There is no guarantee. So it's up to you, it's up to the individual artist to do something in such a way, with such integrity, that they, in a sense, become more integral. They learn from themselves and they emerge. So that's the self we're interested in. The one that keeps emerging. And I think we need that more than ever. I mean, art is useless stuff. It's only good for this. And I think we need that. I mean, and again, I think this is very, very counterintuitive, or counter of what a lot of people are saying. Artists have become socialists or sociologists. And that's okay, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but it doesn't disprove or invalidate what this work is, in my opinion. I mean, I grew up at a time in Los Angeles where everything was exploding. I was in a performance piece in 1969 at Loyola Marymount College. The performance was done by a friend of mine, John White, who the Smithsonian Institute bought his early sketchbooks for performance art. So his performance were artists moving into theater, getting out their IDs, this is during the Vietnam War, and putting them into the garbage can, for the garbage bag that the janitor was collecting, and he dumped them on the stage. That was the first part of this. And then they had artists gather up on the stage, and the theater people were so pissed off that they did a sit-in in the aisle. They actually became part of the thing. While they were sitting in the aisle, the lights went out, and the Loyola Marymount football team came in and did their pre-game warm-up in the aisles. They stripped down to their, to their jock straps, put all their equipment on, and these poor theater people, they just became part of everything. So what I'm saying is, it's not like I've been hiding somewhere under a rock thinking, well, painting, is the only way. I survived that and said, well, and the guy who did this, he's painting today. He's showing with his wife, Sylvia White, in Ventura County. So it's never gone away from me. It's not a choice I made, it chose me, I think. So that's what I'm sharing with these people, and I couldn't be happier for them. And I think you're in for a real treat, because these people are not going away, whether it's here or somewhere else. So welcome, I'm glad you came. And I'm glad you're able to endure my lecture.
Thank you. Thank you on behalf of our group for just being our guide and mentor on our magical mystery tour here. We're
Without
all,
drugs.
we're all here. And because of you, we're keeping with it, and we really appreciate your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.